The wind howled across the rocky surface of Haven 7 like a living thing. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood at the window of her small research station and watched the storm grow stronger. Lightning split the dark sky in jagged lines. The electromagnetic readings on her screens went wild with each flash. Lisa had been alone at the station for 3 months now. She didn't mind the solitude. In fact, she had requested this assignment. The remote outpost gave her time to focus on her work studying alien plant life. More than that, it gave her space to breathe, to think, to heal from losses she didn't like to remember. The station's computer beeped suddenly. Lisa turned from the window and walked to her main console. A red warning flashed across the screen. Emergency distress signal detected. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, trying to get more information. The signal was weak and broken, cutting in and out with the storm's interference. She checked the location. 2 kilometers northwest, in the canyon region. Lisa bit her lip. Going out in this storm was dangerous. The electromagnetic pulses could fry her equipment. The wind could knock her off her feet. Protocol said to wait until the storm passed. But someone was out there. Someone needed help. Lisa made her decision in seconds. She grabbed her emergency suit and sealed it tight around her body. The suit would protect her from the worst of the storm. She packed her medical kit and a portable scanner. Then she headed for the station's airlock. The moment she stepped outside, the wind hit her like a physical force. She leaned into it and pushed forward. Her helmet display showed the direction of the distress signal. Lisa kept her eyes on that marker and walked. The journey took 40 minutes. Each step was a fight against the storm. Twice she nearly fell when lightning struck close enough to make her ears ring even through the helmet. But she kept moving. When she finally reached the source of the signal, Lisa stopped and stared. Half buried in the rocky ground was a pod. Not a human pod. The design was completely alien, with smooth curves and symbols she didn't recognize. Scorch marks covered its surface. One side had cracked open from the impact. Lisa approached carefully. Her scanner showed life signs inside, faint but present. She climbed up the side of the pod and looked through the crack. An alien lay inside. He was tall, even curled up in the small space. His skin had a slight blue tint to it. His face had features that were almost human but not quite. The angles were sharper. His eyes were closed. Blood seeped from multiple wounds across his body. He wore some kind of uniform. Military. Lisa guessed from the structured design and the insignia patches. She had no idea which faction he belonged to. The border regions had so many different groups fighting over territory. It didn't matter. He was hurt. That was all she needed to know. Lisa worked to widen the crack in the pod. The metal was strange, harder than anything Earth made. She used her emergency tools and finally created an opening large enough. Getting him out was harder. He was heavy and she had to be careful not to injure him more. By the time she had him loaded onto her emergency stretcher, Lisa was exhausted. The storm still raged around them. She began the long walk back to her station, pulling the stretcher behind her. The return trip felt twice as long. The storm seemed to sense her weakness and pushed harder. Lightning struck so close that Lisa saw spots in her vision. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. When she finally reached the station and got him inside, Lisa's arms shook with fatigue. She didn't rest. There was too much work to do. She laid him on her medical table and began her examination. His injuries were severe. Multiple broken bones, internal bleeding, burns from what looked like energy weapons. He had been in combat before his pod crashed. Lisa had studied xenobiology, but this was different from reading about alien physiology. This was a real patient with real injuries, and she had to save him without knowing exactly how his body worked. She started with the basics. Stop the bleeding. Stabilize the broken bones. Clean the wounds. Her hands moved with practiced skill, even as her mind raced through everything she knew about non-human biology. His blood was red like human blood, which surprised her. It meant oxygen transport probably worked similarly. That was good. She could work with that. His heart, when she listened to it, beat in a strange rhythm. 2 beats close together, then a pause, then 2 more beats. She counted. 60 cycles per minute. Slower than human, but steady. Lisa worked through the night. She set his broken arm and leg as carefully as she could. She sealed the worst of his wounds with medical adhesive. She gave him fluids through an IV line, hoping his body would accept them. She monitored his vital signs constantly, learning his normal ranges by watching the patterns. He muttered sometimes in his unconscious state. The words were in a language Lisa had never heard. She recorded everything, hoping it might give her clues about what he needed. Dawn came and Lisa was still working. She had done everything she could think of. Now it was up to him and his own body's ability to heal. She sat down beside the medical table, suddenly aware of how tired she was. Her eyes felt heavy, but she couldn't sleep yet. She had to monitor him, had to make sure he stayed stable. Lisa looked at his face. Even unconscious and injured, there was something noble about his features. Something that spoke of strength and discipline. She wondered who he was. Did he have family somewhere waiting for news? Was anyone looking for him? The station's sensors would have picked up any search parties, but so far there had been nothing. Maybe they thought he was dead. Maybe they had their own problems to deal with. Lisa checked his vital signs again. Still stable. That was good. She allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe she had saved him. Maybe he would survive. 3 days passed before anything changed. Lisa barely left his side except to grab food and check her equipment. She changed his bandages. She adjusted his medications. She talked to him sometimes, telling him about Earth and her research, even though she knew he couldn't hear her. On the morning of the 4th day, his eyes opened. Lisa was checking the medical monitors when she felt him move. Kale woke to find himself in an unfamiliar place, with a strange creature watching over him. His military training kicked in immediately. He tried to sit up and assess the threat level. Pain shot through his body and he gasped. The creature, the alien, moved closer. She made soft sounds and gentle gestures with her hands. Slowly, Kale's panic faded. She wasn't attacking, she was trying to help. He studied her carefully. She was small compared to him. Her skin was a light brown color, and she had dark hair pulled back from her face. Her eyes were kind. That kindness confused him more than anything else. Kale tried to speak, but his translator implant wasn't working properly. Only broken words came through. The alien seemed to understand his frustration. She pointed to herself and made a sound. Lisa. Then she pointed to him with a questioning look. Kale touched his chest and said his name. Just his name, not his title. Prince Kale of the Varan Empire, 3rd in line to the throne, commander of the 7th Fleet. He kept all of that hidden. For now, he was just Kale, a soldier who had crashed. Lisa smiled when he said his name. The expression transformed her face. Smiles were different for humans, he realized. Among his people, baring teeth was a sign of aggression, but on her face, it meant something else. Something warm. Over the next few days, Lisa worked on fixing his translator. She took apart some of her own equipment to find the right pieces. Kale watched her work with fascination. She hummed while she focused on the delicate repairs. Her hands were steady and sure. During this time, they communicated without words. Lisa would point to things and say their names. Food, water, medicine. Kale would repeat the words in his broken translator. She would nod or shake her head to show if he got them right. He learned that head movements meant different things for humans. Up and down was yes. Side to side was no. It was simple but effective. Lisa brought him food that she had modified to be safe for his biology. She had run tests on his blood samples and adjusted the nutrients. The food tasted strange, but it gave him strength. Kale was impressed by her knowledge and dedication. When the translator finally came back online, the first clear words Kale heard were Lisa asking if he was in pain. Not who he was. Not what faction he fought for. Just if he hurt. Less pain now, Kale answered carefully. You have great skill. Lisa looked relieved. I'm glad. I wasn't sure if I was helping or making things worse. Your biology is so different from anything I've studied. You saved my life, Kale said simply. You went into the storm to bring me here. Why? The question seemed to confuse Lisa. She tilted her head, thinking, you needed help. That's reason enough. You did not know me. You did not know if I was friend or enemy. I could have been dangerous. You were hurt, Lisa said. That's all that mattered. Kale fell silent. In his world, in Veron society, every action had a purpose. You helped allies because it strengthened bonds. You helped those who could repay you. You calculated the value of each choice. But Lisa had risked her life for him, knowing nothing. Expecting nothing. That concept was alien to him in a way that went deeper than their physical differences. As the days passed, and Kale grew stronger, they talked more. Lisa told him about Earth. She described oceans that covered most of the planet. Forests with trees taller than buildings. Cities where billions of humans lived together. She told him about medicine and the oath doctors took. First, do no harm. The idea that healing was a duty, not a transaction. That knowledge should be used to help others regardless of their ability to pay or their status. On my world, Kale said slowly, such thinking would be called weakness. We value strength, power, the ability to dominate. Lisa looked at him with those kind eyes. Is that what you value? Kyle thought about his answer. Before the crash, before Lisa, he would have said yes without hesitation. Now he wasn't sure. I valued those things, he finally said. But I am beginning to wonder if I was wrong. Lisa smiled again. Compassion isn't weakness. It takes courage to help someone when you gain nothing from it. It takes strength to care about others. One evening, as Kale's bones finished healing, Lisa shared something personal. She told him about her brother. His name was Danny, and he had been younger than her by 5 years. There had been an accident. She had been there but couldn't save him. I studied medicine because of him, Lisa said quietly. I thought if I learned enough, worked hard enough, I could make up for that failure. I could save others. You saved me, Kale said. Yes, Lisa agreed. And every person I help, I think of Danny. I think that somewhere, maybe he knows. Maybe it matters. Kale reached out and gently touched her hand. It was a gesture of comfort among his people, and he hoped it meant the same to humans. Lisa didn't pull away. It matters, Kale said firmly. What you do matters greatly, he wanted to tell her then. About who he really was. About the weight of duty that waited for him back home. About the violence and politics that ruled his world. But he kept silent. These days with Lisa felt like a gift. A chance to be just KL, not Prince KL. Just a person, not a symbol. Lisa asked him questions about his people. Kale answered carefully, leaving out details that would reveal too much. He told her about Veron culture and their long history. He spoke of their achievements in technology and military might. But he also began to see his people through Lisa's eyes. The things he had always accepted seemed harsher now. The rigid class system. The emphasis on strength above all else. The way they viewed other species as lesser. Do you think, KL asked one day, that people can change? Not just individuals, but whole societies? Lisa considered the question seriously. I think change is hard. It takes time. But yes, I believe people can change if they want to, if they see a better way. What if showing them a better way makes you look weak? Kale pressed. What if they resist? Then you have to be strong enough to be compassionate anyway, Lisa said. Real strength isn't about defeating others. It's about staying true to what's right, even when it's difficult. Those words stayed with Kale. He thought about them during the long hours of his recovery. He was a prince. Someday he might rule. What if he could bring these human ideas to his people? What if he could show them that compassion didn't weaken an empire, but strengthened it? 2 weeks after the crash, Kale's distress beacon finally got a response. A Veron ship was approaching Haven 7. They had been searching for survivors from the attack. They had found him. When Lisa told him the news, Kale felt torn. He was glad to be rescued. He had duties to return to. But he would miss this place. He would miss Lisa. On his last night at the station, Kale asked Lisa to sit with him. He took both of her hands in his, a gesture of deep respect among his people. "Lisa Morgan," he said formally, "you saved my life when you had no reason to. You cared for me when I was helpless. You have shown me a strength I did not know existed." "You don't owe me anything," Lisa said. "Among my people, a debt of life is a debt eternal." Kale continued. "I make a vow to you now. I will not forget what you have done. I will not forget what you have taught me. And if ever you need help, no matter where you are or how much time has passed, I will come." The ship carried Kale back to the heart of the Varan Empire, but the empire he returned to was nothing like the one he had left. The moment he stepped off the transport, the officers waiting for him bowed low. Too low. The kind of bow reserved only for the Emperor himself. "Your Majesty," the senior officer said, "we feared you were lost." Kale stood very still. "What did you call me?" The officer looked up, confusion on his face. "Your Majesty. You are the Emperor now. The only heir left alive." The words hit Kale like a physical blow. His father, his older brother, his sister, all gone. He demanded the full report immediately. In a secure briefing room, they told him everything. The attack that destroyed his ship had been part of something much larger. A coordinated strike across multiple locations. The Imperial Palace, the Military Command Center, the royal family's private estates. His uncle, General Voran, had led the coup. He had seized the throne, claiming the imperial line was weak, that the empire needed strong leadership for the wars ahead. Many factions had joined him, others had resisted. The empire was in chaos. Civil war had already begun. And Kale, injured and trapped on a remote planet, had missed it all. "How many loyal to the true line?" Kale asked quietly. 40% of the military. Maybe less. Lord Voran controls the capital and most of the inner worlds. Kale closed his eyes. Everything he had known was gone. His family. His old life. Now he was emperor. But emperor of a broken empire that might not survive. He thought of Lisa. What would she do in this situation? The thought came unbidden, but it steadied him. She wouldn't give up. She would find a way to heal what was broken. "Gather the loyal commanders," Kale ordered. "I want a full council within the hour." When the commanders assembled, they expected their new emperor to call for immediate attack, to demand vengeance for his murdered family, to promise blood and fire. Instead, Kale spoke of something else. "My uncle believes strength comes from fear and domination," Kale said. "He thinks the empire must conquer or die. But I have learned something during my time away. True strength comes from compassion, from justice, from treating even the lowest citizen with dignity." The commanders exchanged uncertain looks. One of them, an old admiral named Torvin, spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, we mean no disrespect. But such thinking seems dangerous in times of war." "Does it?" Kale challenged. "My uncle rules through fear. How loyal are soldiers who serve only because they're afraid? How strong is an empire built on oppression?" He stood and began to pace. "I propose something different. We offer amnesty to any soldier who deserts my uncle's forces. We promise fair treatment to prisoners. We show the people that our side fights for something better than just power. They will see it as weakness," another commander protested. "Let them," Kale said. "We will prove them wrong through our actions." It was a gamble. A huge risk. But Kale had seen what Lisa's compassion had accomplished. She had saved him when she had no reason to. That simple act had changed everything for him. Maybe, just maybe, he could change things for his people too. The first battle came 3 weeks later. Kale led the fleet personally, though his advisors protested. The enemy outnumbered them 2-1. But KL had sent a message ahead of the battle. Any soldier who surrendered would be treated with honor. Any ship that stood down would be spared. When the fleets met, something unexpected happened. 3 of his uncle's ships broke formation. They signaled surrender. KL kept his word. Those ships and their crews were accepted without harm. The battle was still brutal. War was war. But those 3 ships changed the equation. And word spread quickly through his uncle's forces. Prince Kale, now Emperor Kale, kept his promises. More ships began to defect. Then entire units, soldiers who had been conscripted or forced to serve, found a better option. Citizens who had suffered under the harsh military rule saw hope in Kale's reforms. But Kale didn't just make promises. He acted on them. In territories his forces reclaimed, he immediately began implementing changes. Lower taxes for common citizens. Protection for workers. Justice for those wronged by corrupt officials. His uncle called him soft, weak, corrupted by alien thinking. That last part was true. Kale thought with grim amusement. A human had changed his thinking. But corrupted? No. Lisa had opened his eyes to a better way. The war continued for 8 months, long enough for both sides to bleed. Short enough that Kale's message spread faster than his uncle could counter it. Every act of mercy, every reform, every promise, made more people question who they were really fighting for. The final battle came at the capital world. Kale's fleet had grown as his uncle's shrank. Even some of Voran's elite commanders had switched sides when they saw the better treatment and fair leadership Kale offered. Kale sent one final message to his uncle before the battle began. It was a personal communication, encrypted for privacy. Uncle, you taught me about strength and power. You showed me how to command through fear. But I have learned a different lesson from an unexpected teacher. Real strength is choosing mercy when you have the power to destroy. Real power is inspiring loyalty rather than demanding it. Stand down. I will spare your life and give you a fair trial. This ends now. His uncle's response was to open fire. The battle was fierce but shorter than expected. Too many of Voran's forces had already lost faith in him. When the fighting ended, Kale's uncle was captured trying to flee the planet. True to his word, Kale gave him a trial. It was public and fair. The evidence was overwhelming. Voran was found guilty of treason and murder. The sentence was exile to a remote world. Not death. Even his worst enemy, Kale, showed mercy. Some thought this was too soft, but most saw it as strength. The new emperor could have executed his uncle brutally. Instead, he proved that his new way was real, that he meant what he said about justice and compassion. 3 months later, Kale was formally crowned emperor in the grand hall of the palace. The ceremony was traditional in many ways, but Kale added something new. He spoke directly to all citizens, broadcast across every world in the empire. I stand before you as your emperor, but I am also your servant, Kale said. My duty is to all of you, not just the powerful. I learned this lesson from someone unexpected. A human who saved my life when she had no reason to. Who showed me that helping others, even strangers, even aliens, is not weakness, but the greatest strength. He didn't name Lisa. It felt too personal to share publicly. But he made a vow that all Voran citizens heard. I owe a debt to that human. And I will honor it. From this day forward, the Voran Empire will be known not for conquest but for justice. Not for fear, but for honor. We will be strong, yes. But our strength will protect the innocent, rather than oppress them. The speech was 2 years passed quietly on Haven 7. Lisa's research station had grown from a one-person outpost to a small scientific community. 5 other researchers had joined her, drawn by her published work on alien plant biology. The breakthroughs she made led to new medicines that helped thousands across the human colonies. Lisa sometimes thought about Kale. She wondered where he was, if he was well, if he remembered those weeks they spent together. She hoped he was happy. Wherever military life had taken him, She had no way of knowing he was now an emperor. No way of knowing he thought of her often and kept track of everything happening in her sector of space. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday morning. One of the colonists on Haven 7 collapsed during routine work. Lisa and her team rushed to help. The man was burning with fever, his skin covered in strange dark spots. They got him to the medical center, but nothing they tried seemed to help. His condition got worse by the hour. 2 days later, he died. Before they could even process what happened, 3 more people showed the same symptoms, then 7, then 20. Lisa worked frantically to understand the disease. It was unlike anything in the medical databases. The pathogen attacked the human immune system, but it did so in a way that was completely alien, literally alien. This disease had never existed on Earth. They traced the source to a shipment of goods that had come from a nearby trading post. The items had been in contact with products from multiple alien worlds. Somehow, the pathogen had made the jump to humans. The worst part was how fast it spread. The disease was airborne and incredibly contagious. Within a week, half of Haven 7's population was infected. Within 2 weeks, reports came in from other human colonies. The plague was everywhere. Lisa sent her research to every medical facility in human space. She worked 20-hour days, trying to find a cure, or even just a treatment. But the pathogen was too alien. Human medicine wasn't designed for this. The death toll climbed. Hundreds, then thousands, then hundreds of thousands. The colonial government declared a state of emergency. They sent desperate requests to every alien government in the region. They needed help, medical knowledge, technology, anything. The responses were crushing. Most alien governments immediately closed their borders to human space. They couldn't risk the disease mutating to affect their own species. It was practical thinking. It was also a death sentence for humanity in this sector. Lisa watched her colleagues fall sick, one by one. She worked alone in the lab, running test after test. She knew she was racing against time. Eventually, she would get sick too. The plague reached the nearby human military base. Ships that tried to flee were turned away at every port. No one would accept them. The humans were quarantined and left to die. Lisa recorded everything, every test, every observation, every theory about how the disease worked. If she failed to find a cure, maybe someone else could use her work. Maybe future humans could learn from this tragedy. On the 47th day of the plague, Lisa felt the first symptoms. A slight fever, fatigue that went deeper than just exhaustion. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw the early stages of the dark spots forming on her skin. She had maybe a week before the disease progressed to the critical stage, less if she was unlucky. Lisa went back to her lab. She couldn't stop working just because she was dying. If anything, she needed to work faster. She documented her own symptoms as the disease progressed, clinical observations even as her body failed. The station's population had dropped from 200 to 50. Most were sick. The healthy ones were busy caring for the dying. Lisa compiled all her research into one final report. She included everything she had learned about the pathogen. Its structure, how it attacked the body, what treatments she had tried and failed with. She hoped it would help someone, someday. Then she set up a broadcast. She would send her research to everyone. Not just humans, but every species with medical knowledge. Maybe one of them would see something she missed. Maybe they could save future humans even if they wouldn't help current ones. The broadcast went out on every frequency. Lisa's voice, weak with fever, explained the situation. She begged for help. Not for herself, she said, but for all the children in the colonies. For the families, for the future of humanity in this region of space. The message ended with her research data. Thousands of hours of work, compressed into readable formats. Everything she knew. Then Lisa's strength gave out. She made it to her quarters and collapsed on her bed. The fever was consuming her now. The dark spots covered most of her skin. She could feel her organs beginning to fail. In her fevered dreams, Lisa thought about her brother Danny. Maybe she would see him soon. Maybe death wasn't so frightening if you were going to someone you loved. She also thought about KL. She wondered if he would hear about this plague. Would he know that she had died trying to help her people? Would he remember the human who saved him? The station's automated systems began to fail as more crew members died. Power flickered. Life support struggled. Soon, Haven 7 would be silent. Another dead colony in a region full of them. Lisa's last conscious thought was a simple wish. She wished someone would remember that they tried. That the humans in this sector didn't just give up. They fought for each other until the very end. Then darkness took her. Across human space, the plague continued its work. Entire colonies went silent. The death toll passed 1 million, then 2 million. The human presence in this sector was being erased. The Imperial Council chamber filled quickly. Kale's top advisors and military commanders arrived within minutes of his summons. They could tell from his expression that something serious had happened. "Play the broadcast," Kale ordered. They listened to Lisa's message. Watched the data scroll past. Saw the death toll numbers. When it finished, the council chamber was silent. "Your Majesty," one of the advisors finally said, "this is tragic. But it is not our concern. The humans are far from our borders. This disease does not affect our people." "That human saved my life," Kale said quietly. "Her name is Lisa Morgan. She is dying. Her entire species in that sector is dying. And we have the ability to help." The advisor shifted uncomfortably. "Sire, with respect, we cannot risk bringing this plague to our worlds. The quarantine protocols exist for good reason." "I am not asking," Kale said, his voice harder now. "I am ordering. Gather our best medical researchers. Have them analyze this data immediately. I want treatment options within 12 hours. "Your Majesty," another council member protested. "An emperor does not leave the throne world for such matters. It would be unprecedented. The risk alone makes it impossible." Kale stood. "I made a vow. A debt of life is a debt eternal. I swore I would help her if she ever needed it. She needs help now. The humans have nothing to offer us in return," someone argued. "No resources we need. No strategic advantage. This is pure loss for the Empire." "You are right," Kale agreed. "There is no profit in this. No strategic gain. We do this because it is right. Because when someone is dying, and you have the power to save them, you act." "That is what she taught me. That is what I will show our empire." The council fell silent. They recognized that tone. Their emperor had made his decision. Kale turned to his chief medical officer. "Dr. Halvan, you have Lisa Morgan's research. She has done brilliant work under impossible circumstances. Use it. Find a treatment." Dr. Halvan bowed. "I will need access to the Imperial research facilities and authorization to pull staff from other projects." You have both. Whatever you need, but work fast. Time is running out." The doctor left immediately. Kale turned to his military commander. "Admiral Soren, prepare a fleet. Medical ships, supply vessels, security escorts. We leave for human space as soon as we have a treatment. Your Majesty, if you insist on going, at least take the full Imperial Guard. Going into a plague zone is dangerous enough, without limiting your protection." "Agreed. But we go with clear intentions. This is a mercy mission, not an invasion. Make sure all ships are marked with medical symbols. I want no misunderstandings." Over the next 10 hours, the Varan Empire's best minds worked on the problem. They had advantages the humans didn't. Different biological knowledge, technology that could analyze alien pathogens more effectively, and most importantly, they had Lisa's detailed research. Dr. Halvan came to Kale personally with the results. "Your Majesty, we cannot cure the disease. It is too aggressive and too alien to human biology. But we can stop its progression. This treatment will halt the pathogen's reproduction and give the human immune system a chance to fight back naturally." "How effective?" Kale asked. "In early stages, nearly 100% survival rate. In middle stages, about 70%. In late stages, it drops to 30%. KL thought of Lisa's symptoms as described in her last message. She was in the late stages. Maybe beyond even that. 30% wasn't good odds. It will have to be enough. Begin mass production. I want enough to treat every human in that sector. That will be expensive, sire. I don't care. Do it. Within 12 hours of receiving Lisa's broadcast, a Varan fleet departed for human space. 20 medical ships, 40 supply vessels, 30 military escorts, and at the center of it all, the Imperial flagship carrying KL himself. The journey took 3 days at maximum speed. During that time, KL monitored all reports from human space. The death toll continued to climb. More colonies fell silent. When they reached the border of human territory, they encountered human military ships. What was left of them, anyway? Only a handful of vessels remained, desperate and dying. KL broadcast on all frequencies. This is Emperor KL of the Varan Empire. We come with medical aid. We have a treatment for the plague. Stand down and let us help you. The response was disbelief and suspicion. Humans knew the Varan Empire. Knew them as warriors and conquerors. This made no sense, but they were dying. They had no choice but to hope this wasn't a trick. The Varan fleet moved into human space. They split up, each medical ship heading to a different colony. The treatment was distributed freely. The medical teams taught human doctors how to administer it. The results were almost immediate. Patients in early stages recovered within days. Middle stages took longer, but most survived. Even some late-stage patients pulled through. KL took his flagship directly to Haven 7. The colony was in terrible shape. Most of the population had died. The survivors were too weak to maintain basic systems. KL suited up personally and led the team that entered the research station. They found bodies everywhere. People who had died trying to help each other until the very end. They found Lisa in her quarters. She was unconscious, barely alive. The dark spots covered her entire body. Her breathing was shallow and irregular. KL knelt beside her bed. "Lisa," he said softly. "I am here. I told you I would not forget." She couldn't hear him. She was too far gone for that. But KL administered the treatment himself. He set up the IV line, monitored her vital signs, did everything she had once done for him. The treatment worked slower on her than on others. She had been sick longer. The disease had done more damage. But gradually, hour by hour, her condition stabilized. KL stayed by her side for 2 days straight. He refused to leave, even when his advisors urged him to oversee the larger relief effort. Admiral Soren could handle that. KL's place was here. On the 3rd day, Lisa's eyes opened. She was confused, disoriented. The last thing she remembered was dying. Now she was alive, and feeling better than she had in weeks. She turned her head and saw someone sitting beside her bed. It took a moment for her fever-damaged brain to process what she was seeing. The alien wore elaborate robes marked with symbols of authority. His skin had that familiar blue tint. His golden eyes were watching her, with concern and relief. "KL?" she whispered. Her voice was rough from disuse. "Hello, Lisa," he said gently. "You look better than when I arrived." "You came," she said, still not quite believing it. "You're here. You saved us." "You saved me first," KL reminded her. "I made a vow. Did you think I would forget?" Lisa tried to sit up, but she was still too weak. KL helped her, adjusting the pillows behind her back. "I don't understand," Lisa said. "How are you even here? The last I knew, you were just a soldier." KL smiled slightly. "I was not entirely honest with you about my identity. I am Emperor KL now, ruler of the Varan Empire." Lisa stared at him. "Emperor? You're an emperor?" "Yes. Many things changed after I left Haven 7. But one thing did not change. I remembered what you taught me. That helping others is not weakness. That compassion is strength. You brought your entire empire to help us, Lisa said, understanding dawning. Even though we had nothing to offer you, you taught me that not every action needs a reward. Kale said. You saved my life expecting nothing in return. I am doing the same for your people. Tears filled Lisa's eyes. You saved millions. Do you understand that? Without you, humanity in this sector would have died out completely. I know, Kale said. And I would do it again. A debt of life is a debt eternal. But more than that, you are my friend, Lisa Morgan. I could not let you die when I had the power to save you. Lisa reached out and took his hand. It was a gesture of friendship, of gratitude, of something deeper than words could express. Over the next weeks, the Varan medical teams worked with human doctors. They didn't just give the treatment and leave. They stayed to help rebuild. They taught humans about the disease so they could prevent future outbreaks. Kale personally oversaw the effort at Haven 7. He helped restore the research station, brought in supplies and new equipment, made sure Lisa had everything she needed to continue her work. The human colonial government was overwhelmed with gratitude. They offered trade agreements, military alliances, anything the Varan Empire wanted. Kale accepted only one thing: permission to establish a joint research facility on Haven 7, a place where humans and Varans could work together. 3 months after the plague ended, Kale stood with Lisa, looking out at the rebuilt colony. The new facility was almost complete. Scientists from both species were already arriving. You changed everything, Lisa said. Not just by saving us, but by showing your people a different way. I've been reading the reports from your empire. The reforms you've made. The way you rule with compassion instead of fear. That's incredible. I had a good teacher, Kale said. A human who showed me that the greatest strength is choosing to help others. I just did what anyone would do, Lisa protested. No, Kale corrected gently. You did what you would do. And it changed the fate of worlds. My empire is better because of you. Your species survived because of what you taught me. Never underestimate the power of a single act of kindness. Lisa smiled. So what happens now? You go back to ruling an empire? Eventually, Kale agreed. But I will return often. This research facility is important to me. And you are my friend. I do not intend to lose touch. I'd like that, Lisa said. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching scientists unload equipment. Two species that had been strangers were now allies. All because one human chose to risk her life in a storm to save one alien soldier. Kale had been right. A debt of life was eternal. But what started as a debt had become something more. A friendship that bridged the stars. A partnership that would benefit both their peoples for generations. Lisa had saved a soldier who became an emperor, and that emperor had saved an entire species. But more than that, they had both proven that compassion was the greatest strength of all. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything, and sometimes helping one person is the same as helping millions. They both understood that now, and neither would ever forget it. Other species watched from behind their closed borders. Some felt sympathy. Most felt relief that the disease hadn't reached them. None were willing to help. The risk was too great. In the Varan Empire, in the Imperial Palace, an emperor received a broadcast. Lisa Morgan's voice, weakened by illness, speaking about a plague that was killing her people. Emperor Kale listened to the entire message. He reviewed all of her research data. He saw the death toll reports from the colonies. Then he stood from his throne and called an emergency council meeting. The debt would be repaid. He had made a vow. And a Varan emperor never broke his word. But he had to move quickly. From Lisa's medical data and her documented symptoms, Kale could see she was in the final stages of the disease. She had days at most. Probably less. Every moment mattered now, and Kale would not waste a single one. Met with mixed reactions. Traditionalists grumbled. Reformers cheered. But everyone understood that their empire had changed. In the quiet of his private chambers that night, Kale looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Haven 7. Somewhere out there was Lisa, probably still working in her small research station, unaware that the soldier she saved had become an emperor. Kale touched the datapad he kept private. On it was all the information he had gathered about the human colonies in that sector. About Haven 7. About Lisa Morgan. He had promised her that he would not forget, that the debt would be repaid. Kale was a patient man. He would watch, he would wait, and when Lisa needed him, when any human in that sector needed help, he would be ready. The debt was not forgotten. It would never be forgotten. A life for a life. That was the Varen way. And Kyle would honor it, no matter how long it took. Lisa smiled softly. That's very kind. But really, I just did what anyone would do. Kale shook his head. No. You did what you would do. That makes all the difference. The next morning, the Varen ship landed. Soldiers came to collect Kale. They treated Lisa with cold politeness. Clearly confused about why their officer had been staying with a human, Kale walked to the ship but turned back one last time. Lisa stood at the door of her station, waving. He raised his hand in return. Then he boarded the ship and left Haven 7 behind, but he carried something with him. A new understanding, a different kind of strength, and a debt he fully intended to repay, earned quickly. He was looking at her with eyes that were more gold than brown. His gaze was confused, disoriented, but aware. He tried to speak. The words came out rough and broken. Lisa couldn't understand them. She leaned closer, moving slowly so she wouldn't frighten him. She pointed to herself and said clearly, "Lisa. I'm Lisa." He watched her with those strange golden eyes. Then he lifted one hand slightly and touched his own chest. He said something that sounded like, "Kale." Lisa smiled. It was a start. He was alive and conscious. Everything else they could figure out together. She had saved him. And somehow, though she didn't know it yet, that single act of compassion would change everything.